It started with the fire alarm, a sharp, shrieking tone that fractured the silence of second period algebra like glass hitting tile. Everyone jumped. Even Mr. Tennyson, who usually rolled his eyes at false alarms, flinched. It was October 11th. The school had no drill scheduled. Mr. Tennyson narrowed his eyes, checked the wall calendar, and frowned. Still, he told everyone to stand up, line up, and follow the exit route they had practiced a dozen times. "Leave your bags. Just move," he said, a little more sharply than usual. Out in the hallway, the flashing strobe lights turned the white walls pink with every pulse. Students from other classrooms filed out, too. Some confused, others whispering. The air smelled normal. No smoke, no heat. Just sound and color. They made their way to the stairwell in slow, orderly lines, pushed along by the mechanical rhythm of the alarm. No one panicked. Not yet. Down the stairs, through the double doors, out into the sunlight. But there was no sunlight. Instead of the usual brightness of late morning, the sky above the schoolyard was pale gray, like wet paper. There was no sun, no clouds, just a flat emptiness, as if someone had forgotten to finish drawing the world. One student, Elan Rivera, turned to his friend and asked, "What time is it?" His friend stared blankly, mouth slightly open. He had his phone in hand. The screen was off. It wouldn't turn on. Others checked theirs. Nothing. No signal. No battery. No time. Mr. Tennyson took attendance. Several students were missing. He told himself they must have gone out a different exit. Then he looked at the building and frowned. The school looked wrong. It was their building, yes. Same bricks, same sign, same windows. But the proportions were slightly off. The windows on the second floor were too tall. The door frames stretched upward just a bit too far. And the flagpole in the center of the yard stood crooked, swaying gently, though there was no wind. "Stay calm," he muttered, mostly to himself. A loud, heavy clunk echoed through the yard. Students turned. Some ran back, tried to open them. Nothing. They didn't budge. Mr. Tennyson shouted, told them to stay together, to stay away from the building. But then something changed. The sound of the alarm stopped, not faded, not slowed. Cue. It just ... ceased. Cut off like someone had snipped a wire mid-blast. And with it, the light changed. The gray sky deepened into an artificial blue, like the ceiling of a stage set. The shadows grew sharper. The edges of everything looked too clean. Someone whispered, "This isn't real." They decided to walk around to the front, thinking maybe the main entrance was open. The group, maybe 30 students, and Mr. Tennyson, moved together, cautiously. No birds, no wind, no noise beyond their footsteps. When they rounded the corner, the front of the school was gone. Not collapsed, not damaged, just ... gone. Where the doors had been, there was only more wall. Seamless brick, not even a seam or outline, as if the entrance had never existed. Panic began to rise. Mr. Tennyson tried to keep control. He herded the group toward the side gate, but the fence stretched endlessly in both directions now, without end or interruption. What used to be a chain-link boundary had become a tall, black iron barrier with no visible breaks. No exit. That's when the screaming started. A girl near the back of the group, Reese, a freshman, had fallen to the ground. Her eyes were wide. She pointed up. One of the windows on the second floor. Someone was there. A face. Not a teacher. Not a student. Just a pale figure, standing still, unmoving, half-shadowed. And then more students screamed. Others demanded answers. Mr. Tennyson yelled for silence, but no one listened anymore. He turned to run back toward the side of the building to find a maintenance entrance, and stopped. The door he had seen just minutes ago was no longer there, only wall. He turned again. Looked at the yard. It had grown. The concrete beneath their feet stretched wider than before, like the ground itself had shifted. The flagpole stood farther away, now flickering at the edges like a bad video feed. Then came the second sound. Not a siren. Not a siren. A bell. Soft, echoing. A school bell, but slowed, like it had been dragged across a broken speaker. The group turned in unison. Every classroom window on the second floor was now glowing faintly orange, not with fire, not light, but something in between. Something too warm, too alive. A student named Kyle, trembling, whispered, "Are we still at school?" And no one answered. They stood like that for a long time, no one sure what to do. Then the doors behind them creaked open, all of them, together. No one touched them. They simply opened. But one student, Jordan, stepped forward. She said, "We can't stay out here forever," and walked in. The others followed, slowly, reluctantly, Mr. Tennyson last. Inside, the building was silent. No lights, no motion. The lockers were taller, the ceiling lower. Every surface gleamed faintly, as if freshly cleaned or just born. They returned to their classroom. But it wasn't the same room. The desks were all facing the wrong way. The windows were just white squares, glowing. The whiteboard had a message scrawled in perfect handwriting. Fire drill complete. Return to learning. Below that, period. Infinity instructor. Attendance. Mandatory. One student backed away, and ran down the hall. He didn't come back. The classroom lights flickered to life. A bell rang once, then again and again. The final bell never came. It began with the intercom crackling mid-sentence. Miss Howard had just asked the class to open their books when the overhead speaker buzzed. Everyone froze. The room fell silent. Then came the voice, flat, emotionless, male, code yellow. Room 14, effective immediately. Doors locked, lights off, no movement, remained silent. It repeated once. Then the line went dead. Miss Howard blinked. We didn't have a drill scheduled today. Still, she followed protocol. She locked the door, switched off the lights, and motioned for everyone to move to the wall opposite the windows. The class of 17 students crouched together in a huddle, knees pressed against knees, breathing shallow. The fluorescent hum died. The only sound was the thump of shifting bodies on tile and the faint rumble of HVAC overhead. 5 minutes passed. Then 10, nothing. Outside the door, no footsteps, no voices, no sound of chair scraping, no bell. The hall was absolutely silent. Leela, a junior near the back, whispered, "Is this real?" Miss Howard hushed her quickly. "Don't speak. We wait." 15 minutes passed. Then 20. No one moved. Phones didn't work. No signal. No emergency texts from the school's notification app. At minute 27, one of the students, Marcus, mouthed the words, "We should call someone." Ms. Howard didn't respond. Instead, she tilted her head, just slightly. Her eyes stayed locked on the door. Another 5 minutes. Still silence. Then, something changed. The doorknob turned. Not violently, not fast. Just a slow, steady rotation. Click. Everyone stopped breathing. The lock held. Whoever was outside didn't knock, didn't speak, didn't jiggle the door, just turned the knob once and left. No footsteps followed. Miss Howard whispered something. At first, no one caught it. Then she said it again, louder. "Not yet, not yet." One of the students, Tyler, leaned in. "What did you say?" Miss Howard didn't answer. She sat perfectly still, arms around her knees, eyes wide open, mouth slightly parted. A small, rhythmic tremor in her fingers. She began to count, quietly. 1, 2, 3. Her voice was barely audible, dry, tired. 11, 12. Her eyes didn't blink. Leela crawled toward her. "Miss Howard, what are you doing?" Miss Howard whispered, "If you move, they hear it." "Who?" Leela asked. "The hallway." Some students chuckled nervously. Others looked panicked. 35 minutes had passed. The intercom buzzed again. Everyone looked up, hope flaring in their eyes. But no voice followed, just a high-pitched tone. Then, suddenly, a whisper. Just a long hiss, like air escaping a lung. Then silence. No one laughed after that. A student named Emmett stood up. "I'm done. This isn't real." He walked to the door. Miss Howard didn't stop him. The moment his fingers touched the metal, the lights flickered back on. The classroom had changed. The posters were upside down. The clock hand spun rapidly. The bookshelf was gone. The windows were gone. Just blank walls. The door behind Emmett opened without him touching it. He screamed. No one saw what he saw, but they heard something behind the door. Wet, dragging, slow. Miss Howard whispered, "Too early." Then she stood up and walked calmly to the front of the class. She looked each student in the eye and said, "You were told to remain silent." Her tone had changed. It was flat, mechanical, almost rehearsed. Then she said, "Let me show you what happens when the rules are broken." The lights flicked off again. The door slammed shut, and Emmett was gone. The room was silent. Miss Howard stood facing the chalkboard now. Miss Howard stood facing the chalkboard now, writing. The sound of chalk on slate echoed louder than it should have. With every line she drew, the temperature dropped. Some students cried. One girl covered her ears and rocked back and forth. The word being written was "stay," then "stay," 50 times. The same word, the same pressure. Each stroke heavier than the last. Finally, Ms. Howard turned, but her eyes were wrong. Too wide, too empty. She smiled, and the walls began to breathe. Yes, breathe. The paint pulsed. The corners stretched. The floor creaked beneath them as if something massive shifted beneath the tiles. One student passed out. Another bit their tongue to stop from screaming. Leela stood. "You're not our teacher," she said. Miss Howard nodded. "No, not anymore." Then the intercom crackled again. A new voice this time. One they recognized. The real principal. "Attention. Disregard previous alert. Code yellow has been lifted. Room 14, please resume your day." The lights came back. The room returned. Posters aligned. Windows restored. The clock stopped spinning. Miss Howard was gone. Only her shoes remained, perfectly placed beside the chalkboard. The word "stay" had been erased, but the dust was still in the air. The door unlocked itself. Students stumbled out in silence. They didn't speak. Not that day, not the day after. When asked what happened, none gave the same answer. The school declared it a system glitch. The class was reassigned. Room 14 was closed for maintenance. But janitors avoid it now. And sometimes, just sometimes, you can hear chalk moving behind the door, even when the lights are off. No one remembered requesting a substitute for Mr. Holland that day. He was known for never missing a class, not even for illness. The man had once taught with laryngitis and a black eye from a biking accident. So, when room 32 filled with the buzz of morning conversation and an unfamiliar woman walked in, silence fell instantly. She introduced herself as Mrs. Ash. That was all. No first name, no explanation. She wrote it on the board in slow, sweeping script, Mrs. Ash, as if it were already known to them, or maybe carved into something older than chalk. The students watched her carefully. She wasn't intimidating, exactly, but something about her presence felt ... absolute. Her black suit was pressed perfectly. Her shoes didn't make a sound when she walked. And when she blinked, it was always just a little too slow, like she was remembering how. On her desk sat a thick, leather-bound book. It had no title, no publisher. The cover was worn and marked with strange indentations, as if something had tried to claw its way through the pages from the inside. She said nothing about Mr. Holland's absence, nothing about the lesson plan. She simply opened the book and, in a voice both calm and chilling, began reading aloud. The story she read was unfamiliar. It wasn't from their syllabus, not from any textbook they knew. It described a classroom that was slowly becoming aware of itself, the floor groaning with breath, the ceiling cracking open like an eye. Some students laughed nervously. A few glanced at each other. They assumed this was some kind of dramatic warm-up, maybe part of a creative writing exercise. But as the reading continued, the lights dimmed. Not all at once, but section by section, bulb by bulb. Outside the windows, the sky had shifted into a shade of gray-green that looked painted. And then the door clicked. Not just closed, locked from the outside. The sound echoed sharply in the silence. Several students turned their heads at once, alarmed. Mrs. Ash didn't pause. She kept reading. The words flowed like liquid shadow. Each sentence wrapped around the air like a rope. And even those who weren't paying attention felt their minds drifting, like the room was pulling thoughts from them. Devon, who sat near the door, raised his hand. Mrs. Ash, doors locked. She turned the page. He stood and walked to the handle, tested it. It didn't move. Mrs. Ash, no answer. He looked around. The windows had changed. What had once shown the courtyard now displayed only dark glass, like mirrors that didn't reflect anything at all. Someone pulled out their phone. No signal, not even a lock screen, just static. Mrs. Ashe closed the book. Without a word, she placed it on the desk and began writing on the chalkboard. The words weren't in English. They weren't in any recognizable alphabet. The letters bent in unnatural ways, some stretching into spirals, others forming symbols that shimmered and faded the moment they were finished. Then she turned to the class. "Let's take attendance." No one spoke. She smiled. It was the kind of smile people use when they already know the answer to the question they were about to ask. "Who is missing?" she said. The students looked around. One desk was empty, seat 12, always occupied by Sarah Dole, who had definitely walked into class that morning. Her bag was there, her notebook open, pen uncapped. But she was gone. Not gone like she had stepped out. Gone like she had never been there. The class broke into whispers. Several stood. Some moved toward the door again, but this time, it wasn't even a door anymore. Just a smooth wooden panel without a handle or frame. Mrs. Ashe walked between the rows of desks, slowly running her fingers across the tops, pausing now and then, as if listening for something beneath the surface. "I need complete focus now," she said. Her voice had changed, no longer calm. It was hollow, like being spoken to from inside a tunnel. The air turned cold. The light from the windows, if they could still be called that, pulsed gently like the heartbeat of the room. She picked up her book again, began reading. Only now the words were names, not story, not fiction, names. Each one was a student in the room. She read them one by one, and with every name spoken, that student froze in place. Eyes forward, mouth slightly open, as if caught in mid-thought. Devin's name came third. He stopped moving, just sat, staring at the board, breathing shallowly. Then came Taylor. Then Elijah. Then Quinn. And then Sarah's name. Even though she was no longer there, Mrs. Ashe paused on that name, repeated it, then crossed it out in the air with her finger. A low sound came from the walls, like metal scraping metal, and Sarah Estes collapsed into dust. Nothing remained. A girl in the back, Liza, screamed and ran to the board. She tried to erase the names, but the chalk wouldn't budge. Her hands came back blackened, fingertips burned. Mrs. Ashe turned the page again, said nothing. The room began to shrink. Not visually, not like walls moving in, but it felt tighter, as though space itself had been compacted. The students who could still move began to crawl under desks, whisper prayers, call for help that never came. Liza threw a chair at the window. It bounced off and shattered into light. The light floated, then vanished. Mrs. Ashe closed the book again, walked to her desk, sat. Lesson complete, she said. Then, very softly, you may be dismissed. The lights blinked once, then returned to normal. The windows showed trees again. The air felt breathable. Time resumed. The door opened. Teachers rushed in. The principal, the nurse. No one knew what had happened. The students were dazed. Half of them didn't speak. 5 desks were empty. Sarah's name was not on the attendance sheet anymore. Neither were Devin's, Elijah's, Taylor's, or Quinn's. No record, no entry, no memory. Mr. Holland returned the next day. He claimed he'd never requested a substitute. Said he'd been told room 32 had been used for storage the day before. When asked about Mrs. Ashe, he blinked slowly and said, "We don't use that name here anymore." When pressed, he walked away. That night, a janitor found a leather-bound book on the desk in room 32. He opened it. Inside was a single sentence written on the first page. Attendance is permanent. The next day, room 32 was locked, and the lock was on the outside.